Hello, everyone. Are we ready to go now? Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this, the third edition of the Climate Reality Project Canada's webinar series, From One Coast to the Others, Canada's Regions Speak Up on Climate. This is a program of presentations given once a month by climate reality leaders who are trained by Al Gore to communicate the science of and solutions to climate change, and to lead their communities in a just transition to carbon neutrality. We trust that the stories of determination and resilience you're about to hear will inspire you to lead change in your own community. My name is Todd Barsanti, and I'm the lead mentor for the Greater Toronto Area here in Ontario. Today, you will hear from Natalie Lowe, who is joining us from the Niagara region, as well as Dan Hendry, who is in Kingston, Ontario. Both presentations will be 15 to 20 minutes long, and we will look to do a 15-minute question and answer period after both presentations. So if you have any questions, I invite you to hold on to them and or enter them into the chat feature here in Zoom, and I'll be happy to take them at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let's start with Natalie's presentation. We've been under lockdown for so long, we are eager to get out and explore this summer, but not all cities and towns are equal when it comes to their footprint on the planet. Natalie will walk us through how to pick a climate-friendly destination, how to use greener transportation, choose a green place to stay, and how to make small choices that make a big impact on the planet. She will also give us a fun way to combine our private activism and our vacations. So without further ado, Natalie, you're up.
Hey, hello. Am I good to go here?
Absolutely.
I'm a little blind on my side. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Todd. It's really nice to be here. We're kicking off the long weekend in our household, so we hope everyone's ready to have a good hour. Between the pandemic and, of course, the new emergency brake, the lockdown, the travel restrictions, we're all feeling a little cooped up, and we're eager to get out and explore the world. And trust me, my friends in the hotel industry, the destinations, they're eager to have you back as well. So with that in mind, how do we ensure that when we do go back out, we can go exploring in a way that doesn't wreck the planet? I work in travel for a living. I run an event company. And when I started to get really active on climate issues, I started at home, but then there came a time when it was time to take it to work. And for me, that meant everything depended on other people, the venues, the suppliers, the destinations. And so I had to learn pretty quickly how to convince people to do things a little bit more climate friendly than they were used to, in a kind of cooperative way. So I will look at the next slide, and I'll tell you a couple of cool things. And I see some people here from the Sustainable Events Forum. So hello to all of you. I thought that the best way to learn about climate activism was to create a course. So I did the Richard Feynman, figure out how to do it by teaching it. We started the Sustainable Events Forum to help people who are in our industry figure out a way that we could make our events and our travel a lot more friendly. And it's just been an incredible experience, met a ton of great people. And tonight I'm going to take what I learned and share it with you, hoping that it will help you make your leisure and fun and recreation a little bit easier on the planet. So I tried to make it easy because it's the beginning of a long weekend. We're going to do 3 easy steps. Highlight the ways that you can make better choices, then ask for more from our service providers, and then communicate and spread what we're doing so that other people can be influenced by our actions. But first, we need to get to the bottom of a little mystery. My friends in hospitality at the senior level think that 52%, so a majority of their clients, do not care about the environment at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. However, if we look at Canada overall, They say somewhere around 92% of Canadians care a lot about the environment. We care about climate change. So that's a difference of 40%. For a statistician, that's a huge difference. Why would there be such a huge difference? And if you look at the two, what they did was they were asking Canadians how they felt about the environment, but they were asking executives in the hospitality industry what their perception was. So that tells me something really important. We aren't making our voices heard when we make our travel and leisure choices. So let's go back. We're going to cover those 3 steps and we're going to change minds and move hearts, I promise you, in the hospitality and travel industry. So first one is making wise choices. And Emily of Climate Reality gave me a great quote. And Emily, with apologies, I'm absconding it. She said, shopping is politics. And the choices that we make on where to spend our leisure and travel dollars are exactly the same. Your choice of destination will affect your travel carbon footprint to a huge degree. So for example, Quebec has a 97% hydroelectric. So if you choose to vacation in Quebec, immediately your carbon footprint is affected by that. Now, if you want to look, a really great way to check into this is actually something that Climate Reality's done, and that is the National Climate Lake. So Dean is here tonight, and I'm sure he's gonna pop into the chat for you a link to that, and you can check out all the destinations in Canada that are working really hard to make strides on their carbon footprint. The next one is how to stay green. So pun intended. The Hotel Association of Canada has this great program. You can hop on their website and you can look for a member of the Green Key Global program. You put in the city or destination that you want to travel in, and they'll give you a listing of hotels that belong to the program. It is independent. So those are hotels that have gone through the program and they fall under the Global Sustainable Travel Council, which is a global leader in sustainable travel. So we're not just taking the hotel's word for it, they're actually been vetted by a certification process. So next, I live in wine country, so it tends to be a bit of a default for us, but you can look for some cool programs. For example, the Ontario Certified Sustainable Winemaking Program chooses those wineries and they carry that green leaf that tell you that their practices and their purchasing is done in a sustainable way. So you can find a better place to buy your products from, and you can also look for B corporations, which is why I have Bose up here as an example, because a B corporation also has that sustainable side. And whether you're touring or you are looking for a place to purchase from, you can look for those more sustainable options. A cool story that we sort of bumped into was Omar from Vodcow, just outside of Ottawa, and they actually take milk waste that's left over from milk, yogurt and cheese production, and which apparently is highly toxic, and they turn it into vodka. So they took a waste product and actually made something good out of it. Also, you'll see here where we have the aluminum cans, and we all know that plastic is very bad. We think that glass is better, but it's hard to recycle. 9% of plastic is recycled. But if you buy in aluminum cans, which is now offered in wine, I'm assured by great sommeliers it does not affect the quality or the taste of the wine. You have an 86% recycling rate for aluminum. In addition, when you, and yes, I do actually have some of these wines, but unfortunately they're empty now. Sorry about that. They are much lighter to transport, so you're actually saving carbon all along the footprint of the product. Hopefully soon we can go and do tours in these places, but in the meantime, no vacation is complete without some fantastic food. So next, we're going to look at how you can find places to eat or even take takeout and delivery, which is what we're in right now. You can support many local farm to table restaurants or go directly to the farmer's market. How do you find them? Well, now booking sites like OpenTable will actually allow you to search by sustainable as a category. So you can put in your destination as well as the category. The Ontario Culinary Tourism Alliance, who does some amazing work on promoting our local people, has a great section on their website also where you can look up eat local options and farm to table options. So that's great. We've got some options now. How do we ask for more? These people are already doing some. Let's look at the 2020 data that tells us where travel and leisure executives go to find out feedback. So can I get, there we go. We know that the number one place that they look actually is TripAdvisor. So if you put a question or query onto TripAdvisor, that open forum with booking is the main booking site for most hotels. And over 82% of industry executives said that they listen to feedback there and that they make changes in their business based on what they hear. So if you stay at a property and you think that they could do something a little bit better, or you visit an attraction and you have an idea for them, yes, fill out the comment card, but TripAdvisor is where they'll be looking. So you need to remember that feedback is like oxygen to business operators, and they need to hear from you. That 40% gap is because we're not talking to them enough. I have some bad news for the young ones in the crowd. Unfortunately, Facebook is where they look for social media. So your Instagram posts and your Twitter and your Twitch, or I'm not that up on all of them. It's really the hotel executives and the travel and leisure executives are looking at Facebook. Over 60% of travel executives say they read Facebook posts daily. So asking for action has a bit of a negative connotation on it, right? We think that it involves complaining, but we can do it in a Canadian way. I think we put our own little spin on it. And what we do is we politely and persistently ask for changes, and we offer to help. We offer to give them. What I'm finding is that the travel and leisure people, they don't know how to make change yet. And so they're looking for ideas and suggestions. When you're a business owner, you get one compliment for every about 8 or 9 complaints. So try to use that little carrot instead of the stick, and you might find that you get responses a little more quickly. Lastly, you got to talk about what you're doing, right? We have a lot of climate scientists who say that we really have to talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Travel blogs are one of the most read items on the internet. We all love to hear about what somebody else is doing and how they're traveling and the adventures that they've had. So write about your adventures. And if you visit a destination and you want to see some changes, for example, before the lockdown, we were at a public pool in a certain destination, and they didn't have any recycling. So afterwards, we got a hold of their sustainability committee and said, hey, you're selling aluminum at the kiosk. Could you put a recycling bin there? And they got back to us. You can look at municipal sustainability committees are usually a great place to start because they make the changes for that area. You can email them or call them, and the same principle applies. You know, give a little bit of sugar and you get a little bit of love back. So we try to be at the Sustainable Events Forum very positive and very supportive because we understand that if they knew better, they'd do better. So let's help them understand the changes that we want to see. Last slide, completely took this quote from Paulo Coelho, and that is that we have to act out the changes that we want to see. So buy the better products, support the businesses that are making changes, and then most importantly, tell them and tell the municipalities why you chose them, right? And with that, I wish you, when we get out from underneath this lockdown, some great travel adventures, and I look forward to hearing about them. And I'm going to pass this back over to Todd.
Natalie, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I particularly like the part where you talk about using TripAdvisor and Facebook to, write reviews and that they actually read those things. I think we often think about these platforms as ways for us to search for things, but also to use them to give them advice on what we'd like to see and to know that the people in the industry are using those same sources. I think that's great. Okay, so we are moving forward now, and let's see, Dan. Next up is Dan Hendry. Dan has a simple but powerful model to transform public transportation, and it starts with training youth. On-bus orientation and free passes has increased high school ridership from 28,000 to close to 600,000 annually in Kingston, Ontario. The underlying philosophy in the development of this project has been with encouragement, mastery of transit tools, true life experience, and a bus pass in the hands of students. They will gain independence and confidence. This confidence in themselves and in their experience will facilitate students to use the bus now, locally, and in the future, anywhere their lives might take them. With that, we will hand it over to Mr. Dan Hendry.
Thanks, Todd. Can you guys, can you see me and hear me? Hello?
Yes, I believe we do have your screen up now.
Perfect. My name is Dan Hendry, and when I was 12 years old, I didn't think I would love buses this much. I'm going to be talking kind of just informally through something that I've been part of since the start. I'm very passionate about, and I continue to advocate on platforms such as this because I believe it can make so much impact. And it's about youth transit programming. And you're going to learn a bit about that from what we're doing in Kingston. And anyone out there, wherever you are, I'd love to connect if you're interested to learn more, because I really do feel this could make a big change in North America. For me, it started off years ago. I didn't know I was going to love the buses, and I didn't know that it was going to make that big of an impact on my life and others. But I did remember seeing this when I was in college. It was an ad stigmatizing public transit, our public resource for single occupancy vehicle manufacturers. And it kind of always hit me. I really was always upset with how we've been putting down public transit for so long, underfunding it, not using it properly. Yet we need efficient transportation systems in our urban centers to reduce greenhouse gases and live more sustainably. In fact, a stat that I'm proud of, and I'm only a piece of some of the program I've helped with, is that before COVID, ridership in Kingston, Ontario had increased by more than 87% since 2012. And 2012 was the year we started this programming. On top of that, though, there was infrastructure investments, a master plan, transportation programs for employers. I'm definitely just a piece of a bigger puzzle, but I still think a very important piece. In fact, all over Ontario and even Canada, people have reached out over the past couple of years. How are you doing it? What are you doing differently? Can you teach us anything? Or at least of what we've done, And this is a bit of a story. So I actually work part-time with Limestone District School Board. It's the public school board in Kingston, Ontario. And this is talking about a handshake deal between Kingston Transit and the City of Kingston and the local school boards to do better in regards to youth transit. So it actually started off in 2012. And here's a bit of a timeline of some of the key events I'll be working through. But I want to start in 2012, and it was one day, I actually worked for the school board in the city at the time. And if you can see here, a little sketch video here, it was 2012 that the City of Kingston Council at the time and the trustees of Limestone District School Board, they got together and thought, well, why don't we give grade 9 students free access to transit? And I use the word free lightly because, as you're going to find out as this program's developed, it's actually increasing revenue and ridership and other revenue coming in through other sources and a lot of other spillover benefits for the community. But it was that time, 2012, I actually ran into the director's office at the time and I said, it's great that we're giving students passes, but who's teaching them? And when was the last thing you've learned or you did that you didn't learn or was mentored by somebody else? So I took it upon myself and a small group of others to really advocate and try to figure out how this could work. And trust me, the first year when I had a busload of students down to the historic City Hall in Kingston, I thought I was going to lose my job. In fact, I remember one student sliding down the banister, but luckily I didn't. And luckily we refined the program over time. So this is what I do. I take students out on a city bus. You can see here, teaching them things like how to put your bike on the bus. You might think, it can't be that hard, but imagine the first time I learned, true story, I was sweating. My helmet was flopping around. I had never put a bike on the bus, and I actually had a pop tire. It was very intimidating, even for a 30-year-old. So that's why I always start the students off there. But I talk about other things, the social benefits, the environmental benefits. When you look at mass transit, it's a great platform. We can electrify, but we also need people to use it in these mid-sized communities across North America. So by training students, by on-bus orientation, by giving them together at 14 before they get, the milestone of the license in North America, we're giving freedom that gets them to school, freedom that gets them to sports and volunteers and maybe their first date or away from a bad situation. But they're getting it together. And that's what's been incredible. These stories, and as we've refined it over time by both providing free passes for grade 9, 10, 11, 12 now, and by providing orientation always for the grade 9s, we found that their confidence is growing. The usage is growing. In fact, that first year, with just a grade 9 cohort, keep in mind, there were about 28,000 rides. Okay, the next year, we added on grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, and then year after year, it's been pretty consistent. Of course, other than COVID this year with the constant lockdowns and health regulations, it's been a lot different as a whole. But there's been close to 600,000 rides by high school students every year. And to me, that means a lot. A ride isn't just a ride, a ride is a place. They're going somewhere. That prevents a parent or a guardian to maybe have to drive students. That increases responsibility and confidence and volunteering. It really has connected our community. And I've heard stories from so many people, both individually or organizationally, about the benefits, whether it be the health benefits. That years ago, I read that you're 64% more likely to hit your daily physical activity by taking transit because of the amount of walking, right? Or the environmental benefits, where you can see, you've seen the pictures most likely of, how many people could fit in a road in the cars, on a bus, by bikes or by walking, and by getting more people on the bus and training. And I like to see multimodal. These students are becoming comfortable. And even if they learn to drive, like many of us do, and have that in their back pocket, they still have it in their back pocket and they have confidence, and we've reduced those barriers. I've heard many stories of students leaving Kingston, going to another community or another country and feeling comfortable on public transit. And this is something I'm very passionate about. In fact, this program, a couple of years ago, there was a master's thesis completed on it by a woman named Veronica Sullivan from the University of Waterloo. And she found that grade 12 students use the transit pass 3 times more frequently than grade 9 students. This means that, as they get older, the more responsibility, they use it more, right? But what I'm here with you and why I'm trying to talk and connect is because she also found that this program and pieces of this program could be applied to other mid-sized North American communities. And to me, this one program that I ran into an office one day and said, how about we try this? This could change Canada. Equity, accessibility, environment, social, volunteering, even the economy. I always say, I've read multiple times, the average car cost to operate in Canada, I think it fluctuates between $8,000 to $10,000, the insurance, the gas, the parking tickets, right? The windshield wipers, the maintenance. Anytime you see that red light go on, it's going to cost money, right? This can do so much good. And I'm actively talking about this, and I'd love to connect with anyone. As I continue on, actually in 2018, we won a national award from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and which was exciting, of course. But more importantly, from that opportunity, we created a bilingual guide on how we created this, the field trip form, some of the reasons, some of the statistics, just a bit of how we did it. And, it's out there for people to take advantage of. And please pick my brain. I'm really passionate about this. And I believe that if more people use public transit, feel comfortable, and it's just one more tool in their bag. It's one more option they can take to make more choices around transportation and reducing greenhouse gases. But one more thing. But wait, there's more, I guess you'd say. This is a fare change in 2017. And there's a couple of really important pieces I'd like to talk about quickly. One is you can see the high school program free. I hate the word free because it really doesn't, it is free for the students, but money comes from different places. One being in Ontario, with increased ridership, there's an Ontario gas tax that actually comes in per tap for each student. So there's money coming in that we wouldn't have had before. But also it's the bigger picture, the return on investment of all the benefit. The granting organizations that now don't have to spend money on transportation because students have it, or the sports teams, they can get further, or the fact that, you know, the theater shows before COVID were selling out over and over because it makes it more financially accessible as well. Not just that, teachers were taking more field trips. And that's going to lead into what I'm going to talk about for just 1 second after this, which you'll see there, the child 0 to 14, you know, how many, you know, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds are going to use transit by themselves? Not many. So transit wanted to encourage young families to learn and use the bus. You know, start them young and get them comfortable and excited. Whenever I took my daughter on the bus at that age, she just couldn't believe we were sitting without a seatbelt, looking out the window. And, you know, it felt so big and free, I think, in her mind. And so with that being said, we created another program because of how this evolved. And that was a teacher field trip program. This is, if you're watching this, you can see this. These are students. This is a real bus. This is a real bus route. And these are real kids in kindergarten. And they're using the bus pass. In fact, the first year we implemented this a couple of years ago, there were 900 field trips on transit routes. I mean, pre-existing routes. It's perfect because transit is built for the before and after school and work, right? That daytime, it's usually not as busy. And so we have field trips that run on transit systems, and all they have, if you can see a lanyard around her neck, is a tab, and the whole class with their supervisors get on. We did this program here with the kindergartens. These kids actually use it. I just tagged along with a video camera and we told the story. So I'd like to just come back just to, you know, I guess what I'm here to share. Please ask any questions, but on top of that, connect later. I'll have some information up. But I think it's about all of us. You know, when I look at climate action, it is a mosaic of different actions. And I'm passionate now more than ever about buses. Again, when I was 13, I thought I'd be an archaeologist, but life changes, right? So here, I'm here to take any questions, talk about, you know, youth transit programming, any things that we made mistakes or learned from, and I'll give it back to Todd and open it up, I think, or what, Todd, I guess you're the MC, but I'm here to ask or answer any questions. Thank you again for coming to learn a bit.
It's so great. Thank you, Dan. You know, I've known about your program for a while now, and let me just share my screen again to get back into here. I've known about your program for a while, and what always strikes me is this idea that a lot of our youth don't necessarily even know how to use the bus, right? And so by introducing it to them and normalizing it for them, it creates potentially bus users for life. And I think your research has shown that they do continue to use it even after they have to start paying for the passes, correct?
Yeah, we were seeing that totally. And that was one of the things with COVID. It might be a silver lining because sometimes we started it with both of that, the orientation and the pass, but we had a cohort this year that got the pass that didn't get trained. So it might be neat to see also how that affects the orientation and getting it together affects their usage. Of course, everything's a bit different with COVID, but I'm still planning to get going as soon as we're allowed, you know.
That's awesome. All right, so I've got the Q&A should be open. You can either put into the chat or the Q&A feature if anyone has any questions, either for Natalie or for Dan. I think what I'd like to do is maybe get us started here, and I'll bring Natalie back into the fold, and I'll start out with a couple questions. But if there's any questions from the audience, maybe we can we'll spend about 15 minutes here doing some Q&As. Natalie, are there any trends that you've seen during COVID in the travel industry which you think might stay in regards to dealing with potential GHG reductions?
Yes, two big ones. One is virtual is here to stay. So for example, you can now log on to your computer and you can do a tour of a museum or an art gallery. And that's never going to go away now because, to Dan's point, it opens up accessibility. The other thing that is going to become a trend, we've all seen the before and after pictures of Venice, and over tourism was becoming a problem. And so you will start to see how destinations need and must control influx into their areas. Right. So during the lockdown, we saw parks near Vancouver or sort of in the mountain region near Canmore get simply overrun. And we'll need to have a better control over that in order to protect those natural resources.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I think, we're all learning a little bit during this, and if we can, not get back to what was normal before, but to learn from a lot of the things that we've experienced during this time, I think that's really going to be beneficial for us. Um, and yeah, so we've got Lynn has asked a question for Dan. She said, "Are school buses offered to children in Kingston? Are they offered to high school students in Kingston?"
Yeah, totally. And that was one thing we thought was, well, the way it evolved, or when I look back now, I'm very happy that, I mean, this was never about replacing yellow buses. It's a very separate piece. But I think it would be really important to just keep it separate as you're building efficiency and stuff. Like there's, I think, opportunity for efficiency long term, but it was never about that. It was never about, this replaces that, because Limestone is bigger than just Kingston. There's rural sites, school buses are needed for many reasons. But yeah, no, they both operate right now. Well, yeah, totally. And it was just a bit more about the community piece.
That's great. That's great. Um, uh, let's see here. We've got a couple. All the questions are starting to come in fast and furious now. This is great. Carl has a statement here. Any examples of creative ecotourism that have people having fun while learning about sustainability or falling in love with the planet? So a question for Natalie.
Well, yes, and ecotourism has been a bit of a thing for a while. You can go to eco lodges, you can take eco tours, and I think those are wonderful and fantastic. But Dan just used a word that I like to use a lot, and that is normalizing. So in order for us to actually make a dent in the greenhouse gas emissions of travel and tourism, it needs to become normal. And my favorite example is the eco rating program that we use for appliances. So what if when you booked, because maybe not everybody wants to go on a safari or is really into nature, but what if, just like counting calories and money, we counted the carbon? And we know that businesses are starting to calculate carbon budgets. So now you would know I could take that flight to Vancouver, or I could take the train to Ottawa, and here's my carbon. And I think there's a lot of great programs out there, a lot of eco tours available, but I think until we get to that mass perspective where we just do it without thinking about it and normalize that behavior, that's when we'll start to see a shift. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. We've got a question that's come in from Chris in the Q&A for Dan. Dan, are you aware of any plans to diversify and promote multimodal green options, like, for example, safe cycling or car sharing? Your focus is on the transit buses primarily.
Yeah, like I'm still involved in my role. I work part-time with the board, and in our community, I see a lot of different initiatives, things like really well-organized walking school buses that actually have a kind of a neat story with that quick. The director of transportation, my friend that I work with on these programs, when he was on paternal leave, he took a whole transit planning lens, all the little things that are important for bus ridership, right? And he built it a whole program for walking school buses. And some of that was, you can't just hope your kid's gonna at 9 o'clock get on the group walking by it. So it was down to timing at certain areas on the way. So I'm involved in a bit of things, and I can take that offline if there's more, but I really focus, a lot of my my experience has been based on the youth transit programming.
Yeah, that's great. There is a comment here from Raymond Lurie. Sorry, Raymond. About if you have the opportunity to talk about electric buses. I think we are keeping the voice lines open here for our presenters primarily. But I see that you put in the chat for anyone who might be interested in electric transit buses. You set up a site for plugincanada.ca to document knowledge on e-buses, which is awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that information.
Yeah. One of the things that Dan and I have been talking about is, while electric buses have a place municipally, as an event planner, I can't rent an electric bus from anyone if it's not through a municipality.
Wow.
And I think that would be a great swap out program. So I'll be checking out that website. Thank you, Raymond.
That's great. Natalie, I've got another question for you. How do you verify and/or trust the products and services in the eco ratings program?
Well, I heard a great line today that said common sense, like common sense be your guide. But for us, that's why we tend to go with something like Green Key Global or B Corporation, where it's independently verified. There's a ton of greenwashing, right? Like giving up having your room serviced for the day is not going to stop the ice caps from melting. So you want to look for really stringent, independently verified programs. One of the best in the industry is actually by Iberostar. They've got Waves of Change. The owner, the family that runs and owns Iberostar, one of the sisters is an environmental scientist, and there you can go in and you can see where everything that they do is independently verified. So it's, I don't quote Ronald Reagan very much, but it's kind of trust but verify.
Very good. Very good. I love it. Dan, we've got a question here from Carl on the East Coast in our Maritimes, one of our rock star climate leaders. He says that they have an election, a municipal election coming up in a month in New Brunswick. Do you have a site that you could send to sustainability-oriented candidates so that they might incorporate some of those strategies into their platforms?
I'd be happy. So I have a couple things I can send, Carl, if you want to connect. One would be, I did do actually in Ottawa a while ago, a succinct 10-minute TEDx presentation at the National Arts Center. I did that really to capture, first it's the brand and it challenged me, but it's a 10-minute, it's kind of what you've seen here, but even more, I'd say, refined and, multiple angles. So I'll send that. On top of that, I have newspaper articles, but that book from the FCM has things laid right out. And again, happy to chat with more on that, because that's exactly where I would start. I would go to candidates while they're looking to get in, while they're listening and looking for opportunities, because it's not just about the environment. And that's one thing with the program that I can talk to you about from a health perspective, from an economics perspective, from a community perspective, a diversity, accessibility, equity. And there's so many things there that I think it doesn't have to be partisan, right? Like there's different ways that this can happen and really fuel our community. So please connect after, and I can get you some things that hopefully can help out.
Excellent. I love that people are asking about that. It's politics matters.
Yeah, I'll see.
Yes, absolutely. What book from FCM can you post a link?
Yeah, I'll post it right now. Just okay. I'll just search that up here.
Yeah, throw that into the chat. So while you're doing that, Natalie, I'll throw another question your way. Is there an area in the travel industry that we should collectively or could we collectively be advocating for change?
Yeah, the greatest source of emissions from your travels are your transportation. We need high speed, low emission trains in Canada. The railway built this country. It will be our savior. And it has to be high speed because nobody wants to spend 5 days to get from Toronto to Vancouver, right? So that really has to be the future. I'm not seeing any appetite for it outside of transportation specialists, but that's really what needs to happen. We need to start, Dan's working on sort of that municipal level. We need much better train service, and nobody wants to hear me rant about Via Rail, but I think that it's they need to up their game, right? Like it's become a niche product. It shouldn't be. It should be very mainstream. Like what would Canada be without the railways? Yeah. So we've got to go back to them. I saw a question there, Chris, asking about the Green Key program. Yeah, they hired, so Green Key Global has upped their standards a lot. It's now tiered. So just like LEED started where it was just LEED, and then they went, silver, gold, platinum. The Green Key Global program has done the exact same thing. Here's the catch-22. It costs money to become a 5 Green Key property, and the hotel managers are not hearing from us that it's important. So right now, funds are tight. They're only going to spend money on things that bring dollars into the door. So use your voice. And the manager for Green Key Global is a guy by the name of Gary Graham. And he came from the LEED building, the Ontario Building Council and the LEED program, and he's done a great job really improving sort of their standards.
That's great. That's great. Dan, I've got another question for you that's kind of come up in conversations, but maybe you can address it. Do you think you could apply this program to people at the other end of our driving spectrum, the elderly in our community? How can we make public transportation more accessible for elderly?
Yeah, I believe so. Like, I think the biggest barrier that I help overcome in one way is normalizing it, right? It's scary and it sounds funny because to me it's a bus. I always say to the students, I say, I've used buses. When I was in Beijing, what did I use? A bus, and when I went to Ottawa the other weekend, a bus, right? Like, but it takes confidence to understand it. It's a language in itself. How do you get there? What happens if you miss, right? There's all these barriers, the what ifs in your head. So I think for a lot of people that have normalized, walking out of their door and getting into a car, and that's been their only option for a certain amount of years. Yeah, I think that training is important, right? And you got to find the value props why they want to. Is it, they don't have their license anymore? Is it financially? Is it an environmental reason or a health reason? So I definitely think there's programming that could be the training piece. I think it'd be really important for any group. In fact, it was one time, I think somebody saw, they watched a talk I did and they went on LinkedIn and connected and said, would you teach me? And I took a lunch hour. It was just one lady. And I took her on the bus,
Oh, that's great.
and so but I do think it's removing those perceived or real barriers, right? And that just takes a bit of time.
Yeah, yeah. That's such a great story. You've thought a lot about the systems that went into this and the obstacles, like where to buy a pass, how to load your bike. Is there anything else that you think that we can do to make public transportation easier for the public in general? Like maybe if communities aren't ready to adopt your whole program here, there may be some things that we can be leaning on our local transit to
Well,
do.
Kingston really did have a fantastic master plan that led from an infrastructure point of view. Like when you're looking at, it's got to be consistent and it's got to be, frequent, right? And they do a great job with that, like 100%. And then look at other little things. There are a lot of kind of neat ways that, like park and rides and different programs that service them. So if you're coming out of from a rural area, you can park and carpool, or you carpool and take the bus, or even TransPass programs to engage employers for different benefits. So, but I think really it's about advocating for investment. I mean, it's money, but it's also this is about connecting a community. And transit systems, I think, have been underfunded for a long time. Like the way I look at a road itself, it's just a subsidy, right, for whoever's driving on it, right? And a lot of the people driving on it right now, including myself with the one car that we have, right? Like, so money goes into these systems, but we have to advocate for prioritizing things that do make it more equitable, accessible, and better for the biosphere in which we need to survive.
Yeah. I want to echo what Dan said. I gave up my car for my 50th birthday. I know you're supposed to buy a fancy car, but I gave up my car. And here in the city of St. Catharines, I've taken the bus once. It's set up and it's great, but it just, we don't have that tipping point so that it's really good the way that they do in major centers like Montreal. And I think that that's going to be a huge selling point for getting adults like me sort of onto the public transportation system and really working around it. And I think there's also, as an event planner, I think that there's also an opportunity for municipal transportation systems to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit keener about, instead of this is our schedule, the ebb and flow, right? Of when you would need to take it and when you don't. And they do holiday hours, but I think that there's an opportunity there.
That's great. That's great. I'm cognizant of the time. We're coming up on about 15 or 20 minutes here of Q&As. This has been great, guys. I really appreciate all the questions that have been coming in. Dan has put some links here into the chat. I wonder if maybe we can see, for those who are tuning into the live broadcast on Facebook, maybe we can add those links to the comments on Facebook too. That would be great. Natalie, I wonder if you have any final comments or anything else that you've thought about that you might want to share with us?
I think that what we like the grand gestures, right? We like the big grand gestures, but the reality is that what we need to do is be patient with people who are a little bit further behind us in their climate journey and to encourage those behaviors that we see. Talking to people about using aluminum, plan a train trip. And we know those small steps aren't going to make that big a difference individually, but we need to create that wave of change. And please vote.
That's a beautiful perspective. I mean, I think within the movement, we all get kind of caught up on our actions and the big things that we're doing, but encouraging people to do even the smallest action, I think, is huge. And that's such a great insight. Thank you for that. Dan, have you got any parting thoughts or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, it's scary stuff. It's dark and it hangs over me. But I think I fixate on this because I think I've made a difference, and it's not just because people have told me I've made a difference in people's lives, and so I just try to help promote that. So with that, like anything, if I've said anything that resonates, if you're more introverted and you didn't want to pop on and ask a question, or you have time to think about it later, please, any of the details I provide, reach out, and I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations. I believe firmly that like the more people we engage with this, maybe I would be happier than anything if in 5 to 10 years the work that I've helped do change communities across Canada, right? So reach out.
I don't think it's an unlikely possibility. I think you've proven in Kingston that it's doable, and I absolutely see this as something that can be unfolded out in communities across the country. And I don't think you're overstating it. I think this could be a game changer on so many different levels beyond just transit. And I think it's such a great program. Thanks for that.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so just before we wrap this up, we want to leave you with some concrete solutions and programs to get involved, whether you are a trained climate reality leader or not. Our mission as an organization is to build and connect networks of empowered individuals and communities across Canada by equipping them with the tools and knowledge to bring about new behaviors and policies that lead to low carbon, resilient, and just futures. There are endless ways that you can help bring the structural change needed to solve the climate crisis. We have a selection of programs that you can get involved in if you want to help raise ambition in Canadian climate policy at all levels. If you're a climate reality leader, you're already doing that through your acts of leadership, activities that educate, drive action, and support solutions to climate change. And if you're not a climate reality leader, consider attending a leadership core training. Climate reality leaders are citizens of all backgrounds and from all over the world who have been trained by Al Gore to inspire, change, and talk about the science and solutions to climate change. There are over 30,000 worldwide and over 1,400 in Canada alone. To request a presentation by a climate reality leader or to join the leadership core yourself, head over to climatereality.org. The Community Climate Hub Initiative is a network of citizen-led groups that push for carbon neutrality at the municipal level by influencing policy and creating a space for meaningful participation in the democratic decision-making process. To see if a hub exists in your area or to start one yourself, head over to climatehub.ca. You can also take part in our annual exercise in participatory democracy, the National Climate League, whereby citizens collect data on indicators of quality of life to feed into our annual benchmarking standings report. Find out more and download the report at climatereality.ca/NCL for the National Climate League. The Campus Core Initiative is a student-led program that helps academic institutions become more responsible members of the community. To do this, Campus Core chapters have 3 main goals: create greener campuses by implanting sustainable practices, bring administrations to divest from fossil fuels, and push for climate justice to be deeply ingrained in academic curriculums. We're currently leading our pilot year, consisting of 3 university-level campuses with the ultimate goal of expanding into other campuses and into levels of education. We currently have 2 of our 3 pilot student groups formed, and if you'd like to help shape the 3rd, or if you wish to stay in the loop for future expansions of the program, please head over to climatereality.ca/campus core. Finally, there are endless ways that your day-to-day actions can advance solutions to the climate crisis. Here are our top 10. We recognize that not everyone is equal in accessing these types of actions, which is why acknowledging privilege is essential and fighting for climate justice is vital. Above all, let's keep in mind that the goal of individual actions is to scale up the community, which is only possible for everyone if effective and equitable public policies are in place. So that's it for today. Join us for more inspiring talks and solutions. Our next talk will be the Manitoba presentation, which will be happening on May 6th at the same time. There will be a presentation there from climate reality leader Derek Earle. And I see that there are lots of back and forth going on in the chat here. I'm really, really glad to see the active participation of everyone here on the call. I really appreciate everybody's participation here today, and love that you guys are sharing more information there. If you need more information on Climate Reality or Climate Hub, please visit their websites, climatehub.ca, climatereality.ca, and all of the initiatives that we spoke about today here at the end of the presentation. You can find out more information on that. Okay. Without further ado, I would like to say thank you. Thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you for participating in this. Thank you to Natalie Lowe and to Dan Hendry for your presentations. They were inspiring and just really put into very simple means for all of us to start to look at action in our own communities across Ontario. So thank you, everyone. And I will bid you a good night.